Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Comics Rant. I'm your host, Arvin Bautista. Today's episode, I will talk about my involvement with the Death Jr. IP. This was a project that I worked on a while ago when I was at Backbone Entertainment. They are now called Other Ocean, and it was published by Konami for the PSP. It was this handheld console, I guess it's still around, handheld console that Sony had. And this was one of the first games for it. So it was a big deal. Check out this super shiny cover. Let me take a look here. So inside, I have to actually try to remember what I did on these projects. It's been that long ago. I am listed as an animator. And I came on to this a little, it was in the beginning-ish of the project. There was already, I think, a couple animators on it. And I came on board to help out. And I got to clean up some of DJ's animation, and did a little bit of promo stuff for it. And it was a lot of fun. So this was the first original IP that my company was working on, so it was a big deal. And it was something we were trying to push for ages. This will relate to the comic part of Comics Rant a little bit, by the way. I have this special version of the game. It comes with a PSP disc holder, which is nice and fancy. I have never used it. I don't actually own a PSP. Yeah. So this game did, I guess, good enough to warrant a second game. So this one I worked on a little bit more, and I got promoted. This was a few years after that first one. I got promoted, and now I'm listed here, as a key artist. Sounds fancy, but really, I was just a senior animator. I helped out a bunch. I think what ends up happening is you get promoted and you rise up in your title depending on the game. In this case, I was the key artist. I did not do environment stuff or anything like that. It sounds bigger than it is. I did do a lot of cinematics for this game, and that was my first time doing cinematics. It was pretty terrible, but and I say that very uncomfortably. It was a good crash and burn. I learned about budgeting these things and what production costs would be and what was feasible. The outsourcing group did excellent, by the way, with what I gave them. So I guess it turned out for the best. These games had a pretty good budget, or I felt like they had a pretty good budget from Konami, because we had things like action figures made. Kind of crazy. Pretty awesome. Death Jr., Pandora, and the Seep. This baby in a jar. I think I actually have the whole set. Look at that. Yeah. Played Death Jr. the video game. This was a great experience. It was a lot of work, and there were a lot of people involved. Let me grab some of how this is gonna shake out. A lot of people involved, and we even had comic books made, if you believe it. And this is one of the comic books. These are one of the comic books that were made. It was written by Gary Whitta and drawn by Ted Nafee. And Gary Whitta at this time wasn't as big as I think he is now. He writes movies and TV shows and all sorts of things. But at this point, I think he was still early on development with Book of Eli. I remember my boss, Mike Micah, had been talking about it, or I would overhear these things. I'm not that high in the totem pole. I'd overhear these things and be like, oh wow, the guy who I did not even know Book of Eli back then, which is an awesome movie, but he's the guy who wrote it. How's that for crazy? And Ted Nafee drew Gloom Cookie, if I remember that right. Lenore, I think, is his other thing. And he draws those books really great stuff. So he draws the interiors of this. This is 64 pages of every issue. And there were 3 of these issues that were published. This is the first set. Yes, so this was for this game. It was a form of an extension of the world. And it's actually a really great story, a really great expansion of the story that's in the game about like his uncle and Death Jr. is Death's son. He has a gang of kids that are his crew. One of them is Pandora of Pandora's Box fame. And these other action figure friends that I had, Seep and Stigmartha was one of them. This girl who has stigmata in her hands. The conjoined twins here. All sorts of funny, creepy, goofy things. And Ted Nafee is the perfect fit for something like this. This was published by Image, so this is also kind of cool. $4.99. This copy I got signed by Steve Purcell. This is a Steve Purcell cover. The guy who made Sam & Max. My boss has a lot of contact. My old boss has a lot of connects. Mike Micah is his name, and he knows everybody. So he was like, do you want your comic signed by Steve Purcell? Do I? Heck yeah! So this was a lot of fun to get back. And anyway, so here's the comic book connection, right? Death Jr., our game IP, has a bunch of comic books made. What ended up happening was in the company, we had the artists there draw covers so the first set was 3 issues and it got compiled, put together in a graphic novel, which was awesome. And we got Mike freaking Mignola drawing the cover. From what I understand, the story is Mike Mignola's kid wanted a poster of Death Jr. I guess his child must have loved the IP. I don't know how he caught wind of it. You know what? Maybe this was made after the game was launched. Don't quote me on that. So this is all 3 64-page issues, which I think is kind of crazy for Ted Nafee to produce in the amount of time that I remember it when it was getting printed. It was fast, and Gary Whitta's story along the way is excellent. So here's one of the covers by one of the people that I worked with, Sach. She has a great style. She got the first issue, which is awesome. And let's try to find the second one and the third one. Oh, yes. Rody Montillo drew the second one. Rody Montillo, I met him through my friend Ken Navarro because they both worked on Happy Tree Friends. Rody has his own IP nowadays. Around this time, I think he had already published Pablo's Inferno, and he's done all sorts of things after this. Cloud Boy and Gum Girl are 2 of the books that he made. Those are great. He's a great style. If you want creepy and cute, he's definitely the guy to go to. He's got all his stuff, I think, at RodyMontillo.com. So check that stuff out. Anyway, it's a great cover. This is awesome looking Seep, by the way. His own style. Part of the fun in these covers is that Death Jr. gets reinterpreted so many times by each artist. The last cover is by... This is not the Purcell one, is it? Sorry, let me take a quick look at it. Oh, I'm missing it. Oh, there. Oh, it is. It is the Purcell cover. Okay, so I'm right. It was in the first batch of books. First batch meaning this is the first volume. For the second game, there was another set of books that got made, right? For Root of Evil, there were another set of comic books made. Also by the same team of Gary Wood and Ted Navy. Now, where do I come into this? Let's leave this as visuals. Where do I come into this? I got super jealous. Everybody at the company got to work on a comic book for our IP. Meanwhile, I'm there toiling away on the animation here. Let's, toiling away as if it was really destroying me. It was, actually. Inside here, we have art by Dave Alsop, a concept artist, and I think an art director, actually, for Backbone, in Canada? Or a sister company that was owned. I think we were already Foundation 9 at this point. I could be wrong. Peter Overstreet is an awesome artist that I work with. He's a teacher now. He can hit so many different styles. It's not even funny. I'm glad you can't quite see this at its actual resolution. Someone goofed and sent in a low-res version of Pete's excellent Ashcan issue comic cover that I believe we distributed out in San Diego. So here, these are my coworkers working on such with a great style. For mood pieces, character design and mood pieces, she provided some of these. I was so jealous. I was so jealous. Things are like in print and people drew them. And it's in my hands, and they're doing comic books, and I'm not. Wah, wah, wah. Hot Topic. Get your toys at Hot Topic. I mean, at this point, we were a small company, Backbone Entertainment, so it was kind of like a big deal. It was kind of cool to see these things in print in my hands. So by the time I had figured out people were doing covers for the comic book, they were already printed. They're already done. So, extra wah wah on my part because it was done. That's why it excited me when we worked on the second one and there was a second set of comics made for this stuff. Right? You know what? To be honest though, by the time I found out about the second set of comics being made, I believe already 3 covers had been assigned to other people. So there was another set of 64 books with 3 issue 64 page books with 3 unique covers. And I believe we had a few, I think all of those covers may have been from internal artists. I could be wrong. Anyway, by the time I found out about it, I think the last issue was about to be printed or something like that. But anyway, I stormed in. I was like, no, I want to be part of this. I want to be part of this. I kind of bullied my way to try to get a cover. And I really just wanted a cover that was, for one of the issues. And Micah, my old boss, and I believe Micah Russo and Norm Badillo is my art director. He's the art director for both of these. Especially on the second one, I believe. He may have been lead artist on the first one. I bugged them. I was like, I want to make a comic book cover for DJ. I'm the comic book guy. Didn't you guys know I'm the comic book guy? Whatever. I felt such a big shot I could do these things. I definitely was full of myself. So I asked for an assignment to get a cover for this, and they could not give it to me because the 3 had already been made, but I could do the compilation cover. So that's kind of nuts. Here, I'm going to cut to the chase here. And I get to have my own cover for the second volume of the compiled issues of Death Jr. And this is it right here. I was so proud. It's like, ooh, there's an Image logo on my cover. And first time I saw this, guys, it was crazy. Yes, my name, all big. Oh, wait, we have Dan Brereton doing a cover for the second set. So Death Jr. created by Micah, Terry Selting, Micah Russo, and Chris Charla. And there was a lot of politics going on with Death Jr. I can't really blame anybody for all the politics going on. I was kind of lower on the totem pole. No, what am I talking about? I was lower on the totem pole, not kinda. So I didn't really know the details of the politics, except I just knew everybody was always vying for ownership of this IP. You know, everybody was so super excited. They wanted to put their own stamp and spin on it. So it was difficult. Plus, everybody has their own style, right? Like, even just from the covers alone, you guys could see that everybody has their own take on this stuff. And heads will butt. You know, you got some really talented artists, like I mentioned. We had, I think Brian Steffel was on there. He was at EA. I forget where he is now, but he's just really talented. I mean, all these people are super talented. Sach, you got Peter Overstreet, Terry Selting. All sorts of people came and went, actually, through the IP. And so there was a lot of push and pull, a lot of tension. We got it done. But, you know, it was not quite as easy as you would think. Here's the cover by Dan Brereton. I don't know why they did not print the back part. These are all 2-page, you know, full 2-page front and back covers for the originals. It's a shame that they cut the rest of Dan Brereton's cover. I don't think I have a copy of it. And this was from our UI artist, Chad Farr. I think this was when, so I saw this, must have seen this on his computer. And I think this is when I was like, wait, you're doing one? Chad works in the same office that I do. And guys, I had no idea any of this stuff was going on. It was like really late until I found out we were making covers for this. Again, like I said. So when I saw him doing it, I was like, oh, heck no, I gotta do my own cover. Again, I was very full of myself. If you can get a cover done, I want to get a cover done. You know, like I was just so jealous. You know, these comics guys, I get really worked up over comics. And this is another cover. It's an excellent cover. It's like a Conan. It's got a Conan the Barbarian kind of composition by Chris Barassa, who is also, I believe, also an art director and a concept artist at a sister company that we had. So, you know, I'm just super jealous, boiling here. I'm like, what? You know, I'm right here in the studio and nobody's asking me. I wonder why nobody's asking you, Arvin. Anyway, I got it. I got the cover. This was cool. It was written by Joe Morrissey, who worked on a few other big AAA title games. Great guy, super nice guy. He always loved comics. We didn't work together for too long, but we would gab about how comics are so cool. This was illustrated by Guy Davis. Guys, Guy freaking Davis. It is some excellent stuff. I mean, I don't know who has the connections to pull these artists together. Probably was Mike Micah, because he does know everybody. But it's great. Death Jr. by Guy Davis? Some crazy stuff. So, you know, in hindsight, now I'm like, man, I was totally lucky. And I'm glad I bullied my way to get a cover for this IP. I posed this character, and Mike Badillo, Norm's brother, was a senior artist, and he would do like the rendering, the compositing, the lighting for this. We worked together. It was a lot of fun. I had thumbnails of this. I'm not sure if I still have it. One of the main guys that drew some concepts for us was Jeff Matsuda. Again, I'm telling you, I don't know who it was at the company who knew all these people, but we had Jeff Matsuda drawing concepts for Death Jr. And I remember Mike Badillo and I were like, Jeff Matsuda's stuff is so cool. It should just look like these characters. In the end, it was kind of hard to have him with this giant noggin. He does have a giant noggin in the game, but we just loved the character design so much. It's kind of what I based my guy off of as well. And Pandora. It's just great art by Jeff Matsuda, guys, to be honest with you. I think we have more. Why didn't we print out more of those? But you could see it here. Did the cover for that was on the game. And okay, yes. So this is the other one that we made. I never got to play this game. completely different studio. So also a little bit of rivalry going on within our studios. I remember that. And this was Ted Nafee again. I believe we also handed these out at San Diego Con, which is fun. Anyway, how did this cover get made is what I will go through now. But I do have really fond memories making this cover. Maybe it doesn't stand toe to toe with everybody else's stuff, but man, I still really love this cover, mainly because of how much I worked to push to get to this, to get a cover. And then also that I got to work on this on my salary for 2 weeks. I mean, that's a cush job. I was just drawing thumbnails and sketches, coloring. I was nitpicking everything. So here's one of my early studies of Death Jr. And I was just I was throwing everything out there. A lot of it doesn't work. This guy's kind of fun, but I don't think I want to draw that on the cover. It just wasn't me. Other people can pull it off, not me. This one is this is how I used to draw. Just very tight. There, I like it. It's just character design cannot be like this because I would just go so tight so quick, and I did not give it any space to make mistakes or to find gray areas of the design. It was either this locked in design or nothing. So those were the early designs, and then I did a few more studies here for the main character and the bad guy. This was the bad guy, so you can see, I mean, there's like a ton of horrible drawings here, so it's great to share it with you. Ton of horrible drawings, just trying to figure out what kind of look I'm trying to hit. Early Pandora, which actually kind of looks like what she looks like now. The main bad guy was kind of hard for me to grasp. I'm looking at Ted Nafee's drawings and trying to figure it out. We got Seep, and it was good to see other people's covers to generate something that could be mine, and really to get like a good frame of reference on how people handled certain shapes and certain characters will work. So I was kind of cheating, to be honest with you. Other people's character designs did all the legwork for me. Some action poses for Death Jr. And here's one of the bad guys in the book. He's like the shorter dude, but I gave him like kind of this crazy long face. Stigmartha, early Stigmartha drawings. Some crazy notes. I don't know, somebody's phone number, social security card. I don't know. It's not. Please don't try to take my identity. This is the early sketch thumbnail of the cover, and looks like he's facing that way. So if this was a cover, he'd be facing that way. It's an option. I don't know if I like it. I guess that's why I didn't do it. Here are the conjoined twins. It's trying to play with length of their heads, and if it's like better if it's rounder or longer. I have other characters in the cover that already have round heads, so all that kind of stuff comes into play. One of the first early drawings trying to figure out that pose that he goes into. Another Pandora. Trying to make her a little bit more cute. That eye is crazy far though. Zombies, there are zombies in the cover, and a lot of times I'm just trying to sketch things and try to get it out. I have a hard time especially for this cover, I'm trying to impress everybody, right? I bullied my way to a cover. I definitely better perform. So I'm trying out all these other sketches, even like logo placement there. It looks like I have a background, more character design. It's funny, I remember going back and forth millions of times and trying to figure out Death Jr.'s head and trying to be like, I want to have my own style on this guy. It was one of those projects I was really trying super hard. I'm just glad it didn't fall super flat on my face. or at least in my opinion. And then here's the layout, which is kind of nice that I still have this card. This card was provided by Shanthan Jetty of shanthanjetty.com, or Art of Shanthan Jetty on YouTube, I believe. Really great guy. So he made these templates of black and white templates so you could lay out anything, comic pages, right? There's like ruled lines here for, you could grid out your pages super quick in thumbnail form. I still had it and I decided, hey, I'm gonna do my thumbnail this way, and it's in red. I kind of like this non-photo red. Actually, I think it's just a colored pencil. I'm not sure if it's non-photo. But to lay it out, and it didn't feel, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Permanent. So just by working on something that was lighter, that I couldn't press hard onto. By the way, I'll show you the final, and back, you can see it here. My sketches press hard on the page, like a little too hard. So this kind of helped me loosen up. And then I blew it up once I kind of had the thing, and I did like slight corrections. I believe I had a couple more pages actually that were 11 by 17s. They were just blow-ups of these to kind of then trace on to a light box. And before I get to the final ones, here's an interesting one. This was the, I don't know what's going on here, but you can kind of see this is where some of the composition was before I kind of arrived at it. It's this angular composition. It exists still, like it's here because it was starting here. But this angle that Pandora is in still exists. She has a Tommy gun because Tommy guns are cool, but once you start putting it into a cover, it's like, oh, it's too busy. It's too much stuff. And then, I don't know what was going on with Death Jr. here. Check this out. Dude, draw on the page, man. What is going on? So yeah, that's a fail. That's not going to work. So I think at this point, I like this image of this character. I'm glad I didn't stick with it because then it changed into this kind of, I don't know, I like this face a little bit better than this one. But, you know, that's no fun in a comic book cover. Death Jr.'s scythe is cut off. Yeah, come on, Arvin, what are you thinking? So yeah, that went the way of the dodo. And then, so you saw all those thumbnails I did, and then this is the final. So this one I did with non-photo blue. You can kind of see it here. It's still there. I'm all trying to be comic book artisty with the X's in my black areas, even though I'm the one who's gonna black it in anyway later. But anyway, so back then I drew really hard on the page. I would press down. So I was doing this thing. I was trying to get into the animation industry before I landed in video games. And one of the things that you do as an animator, as a cleanup animator, is to clean up lines. So you would try to make a nice single line, which they would call anemic lines. No weight, no line weight, no nothing. But it had better be clean. It had better keep the form of what you're cleaning up, because you're going to send these out as key art for the in-betweeners, and it needs to maintain volume with this one anemic line, which is hard. It's hard, guys. At least for me, it was hard when I was starting out because I failed all those tests. I didn't do very good. Funny enough, I think what ended up happening was I got traumatized because I couldn't do an anemic line, that it bled over to my comic book work and how I finish my artwork back then. I can still do this. I still do. I still like doing it. The thick line, the line weight, using line weight to delineate space. So things that are closer to us have thicker lines, and things farther away have thinner lines. But when I drew this is for color, right? So I'm not so worried about that. I am blocking in my blocks because of how the thumbnail came out, so I knew where they were gonna go. But it definitely was made for color. And here, I can take a look at these guys too. So I remember when I drew this cover, I believe Chad had seen my Photoshop file, and he would look through it. I don't know how close he must have looked at it, but I remember he would ask me, how did you get the vectors to look so sharp like that? Or something to that line. And I remember I'd be so confused because I'd be like, what are you talking? They're not lines. I drew it. And he keep asking me, no, I mean, yeah, I know you drew it, but like, the vectors, how did you? And vectors are like a way a computer could figure out the curve or even how straight or how clean a line is when in between 2 points. And it has that nice illustration, clean illustration look that I'm sure you guys remember if you're old enough from like Flash animation days, like it's all vectors and stuff like that. And I remember it was funny because I was like, I did not use vectors. I just pressed really hard on the paper and I drew it. It always cracks me up, and I remember that as one of the things about this cover. So anyway, when I saw this in print, it took a while. I was working on different projects by then. I wasn't on Death Junior anymore, and I think I was working on these 2 projects, Wolf of the Battlefield and 1942, and I was burnt. I was really burnt out. We were working long hours. I was actually art lead for both of those games. Norm was doing, I don't know what Norm was doing. He may have been doing some other bigger projects. So these 2 are downloadable games, but they were kind of happening almost not really simultaneous, but one after the other. And I think the development time for those, each game was like 3-4 months. It was short. It was really short and a lot of work. So I was fried. I'd go to comic book stores every Wednesday as like a pump up because I love comics. I love seeing other people's art. I love just taking a break from, I love taking a break from work like everybody. But the comic book store was my refuge. And I had actually forgotten about the cover at that point. I'm neck deep in work and overtime. And I saw this for the first time on the bookshelves, and I was so ecstatic. It was such a great feeling. I gotta tell you guys, it was such a great feeling. And yeah, it's my company basically paid to make a comic book, but it was something else to see it on the bookshelf and to see the image logo on it, to see the colors had come out pretty good, or good enough. I remember trying to balance this thing, because I was working on RGB, but really it should have been CMYK because you can't get certain colors that I was using. And it just felt so good to hold it, to grab it from the bookshelf and like have it in my hands, right? Like see every kind of print thing going on there, like on the spine and all the words. It just felt finished, and it felt like it was done. I had it. This was one of my dreams. I wanted to get a comic book made. Now, I didn't draw all the good stuff that's inside, but I got to sneak in there and get a cover. And it was such a satisfying feeling. Such a satisfying feeling. Prior to all this, I just kind of remembered one of the little stories I had for this cover is I didn't get any art direction for it at all, which is kind of crazy. I think I got the title and that name should be on there, and of course the image logo and maybe a spot for the blurbs, which I did not think was going to be this big. That's why this was the small spot for the blurb. It should have been a bigger space. But I remember Nicole Tanner, I think, was the one that was dealing with all the production stuff. And I that was the only direction I got. Like, here's the logo, and you gotta get these people's names on them. And I worked on this for 2 weeks. 2 weeks on salary, like I mentioned, if I didn't mention it. 2 weeks on salary, on video game artist salary, which is, okay, but not, that's a lot of money for comic book cover. And I didn't get any art direction except for towards the end when I was coloring this and really just tweaking all the values. Norm Badillo, who's the art director for the second game, art lead for the first one, had come over and said, hey, you know, I only have one thing about the cover, and it's the colors. The colors should be muted and dark, you know, and creepy, right? Like our IP, right? Like our IP is kind of like that. The colors are, you know, blacks, grays, even browns, darks. That's kind of bright though. But that's what he said. That's what he suggested. And, you know, I was just really so gung-ho about my cover. Mainly, I told Norm, the main thing is I can't compete with this. No one can compete with this. This is it. This is the epitome of a Death Jr. illustration cover. Mike Mignola drawing this 2-page cover spread, right? I mean, I can't beat this. So I was like, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm just going to go bright. It's going to be bright, bright, bright. I said it, I think, a little bit more rude than how I'm saying it now. But my thing was, I can't beat this. I gotta be something else. I gotta be my own thing. I gotta do my own thing. Basically, I told him no. Now, if you think about that, I'm getting paid for 2 weeks work on this with my current salary, as in benefits, insurance, you know, the whole work of like a full-time job. Definitely, I think, better than a freelance artist drawing a cover. And, you know, I should have listened to my art director, because he's the art director. But guys, you know, looking back at it, I'm kind of glad I didn't. Sorry, Norm. Norm is a great guy, by the way. Sorry, Norm, but I'm just kind of glad. I look at it now and I feel like, yeah, I think I did the right thing. This was the right choice. Whether people hate it or hate it, it was my decision to make. It was my journey to get this comic book cover done. And I'm still proud of it. I'm actually still pretty proud of it. Came out pretty good. I even signed it with my Chinese chop character. An inside joke. There's an inside joke at the company because I would always sneak this character in when I was a sprite artist into any sprite that I animated. It'd be like in lightning bolts. It'd be like in backgrounds. It'd be graffiti on the wall. It would be everywhere. And everybody would be like, you're so full of yourself. You keep sticking your name in there. I was like, but it looks like a lightning bolt and all that kind of stuff. Inside joke. Anyway, I carried my inside joke all the way here. Tattoo on the zombie. In any case, that was my journey for Death Jr., the IP of Death Jr. and this cover. It was such a fantastic experience. It'll never happen again. I'm glad I got to do it. I'm glad I spoke up. And I'm glad I'm part of it. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And I will see you guys next time on Comics Rant.